Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos. Thanks so much for being with us. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis today, all of it brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Right now, Three Martini Lunch listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/martini. Much more on that later in the edition. Jim, we are flying with full steam ahead today. Our internet's working and the economy is raging in a very good way. 4.1% growth in the second quarter. President Trump, uncharacteristically, proudly trumpeting this news. Here he is on the White House lawn today.
Moments ago, the numbers for America's economic growth, or GDP, were just released. And I am thrilled to announce that in the second quarter of this year, the United States economy grew at the amazing rate of 4.1%. During each of the two previous administrations, we averaged just over 1.8% GDP growth. By contrast, we are now on track to hit an average GDP annual growth of over 3%, and it could be substantially over 3%.
So, Jim, 4.1% for the second quarter. It was 2.2 in the first quarter, so that's obviously a great jump. A lot of people are bullish that this can continue, particularly if Trump starts to go back in the other direction on tariffs. But this is great news. You got some liberals out there, some media outlets trying to downplay the significance. But considering where we've been over the last just about decade now, this is great.
Yeah, I will take good news any day it arrives. I don't think you should be rooting against economic growth and rooting against your country just because you really don't like the president. This morning in the Morning Jolt, I noted that apparently, 20% of Democrats believe the economy is doing poorly. I don't think that's a fair reading of things, whether your measuring stick is the unemployment rate or GDP growth. And it was, really half of Democrats think it's doing just fair. And a majority of Democrats believe the economy is getting worse. Now, are there things to note in this economic GDP report that we probably should, with an asterisk or a caveat or something? Sure, there was a giant increase in soybean exports to China. The expectation is that as American companies wanting to get the exports in before the tariffs that China announced go into effect in retaliation to our tariffs. Or, Greg, maybe they're just really hungry last month. I'm not, maybe they just really were in a mood for soy. So that's why they increased the exports. Look, you and I have been talking about the tariffs in the last couple of weeks and saying that this is not the sort of thing that helps you with economic growth. It is a reason for concern. These numbers, the tariffs had not kicked in yet. So this is kind of, the evidence of what can happen when you have tariffs not in place, the tax cuts in place, and the generally lower regulation approach of this administration in place. Lo and behold, good things happen. And it's great to hear. One other thing I also noticed that apparently, I remember yesterday Trump was saying, I'm hearing good things. Analysts think we could be seeing good numbers. And everybody's pointing out, look, the president usually gets this ahead of time. He's hinting at it. Isn't this, he did this with the unemployment rate about a month ago. And everybody's like, oh, isn't this so inappropriate that, good heavens, this is the equivalent of insider trade. No, he gets the numbers. I think it just kind of creates an interesting dynamic, though, Greg, that if first Friday of next month, we know the unemployment numbers traditionally come out each month. Quarterly GDP numbers come out every 3 months because that's what quarterly is. If Trump doesn't start saying, hey, I'm hearing good things, that's probably a sign it's not going to be as good as these past couple of weeks. But anyway, it's whatever the future holds, it's always good to see these numbers going in the right direction. 4.1 is a considerable figure, a nice boom, and hopefully we can sustain this for several quarters in a row.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good policy, as you mentioned, for the most part on taxes and also on deregulation. Let's hope we can keep it going. And as the president has said today, and most economists will tell you, when the economy is growing like this, it means businesses are expanding. And when businesses are expanding, they are hiring, which can be a challenge. But good news for you is that there's one place you can go where hiring is actually simple, fast, and smart. A place where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. That place, yes, is ZipRecruiter.com/martini.
ZipRecruiter sends your job to more than 100 of the web's leading job boards. But they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invites them to apply to your job. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that more than 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day.
With results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest-rated hiring site in America. And right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/martini. That's ZipRecruiter.com/MARTINI. ZipRecruiter.com/martini. After all, ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. All right, Jim, let's move to our bad martini now. And on many days, this could probably qualify as the crazy. The Democrats have decided that anything from jokes to deliberate misinformation about elections needs to be criminalized. Huffington Post. Several congressional Democrats plan to introduce legislation Thursday that would make it a federal crime to knowingly and intentionally publish false information about elections. The legislation would criminalize knowingly spreading wrong information related to the time and place of elections, as well as voter qualifications and registration status. The bill would also make it illegal to knowingly claim an endorsement from someone within 60 days of a federal election. Anyone who spread such misinformation would be subject to up to 5 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. The measure is being introduced by Democratic Senators Claire McCaskill of Missouri, Ben Cardin of Maryland, Doug Jones of Alabama, and Patrick Leahy of Vermont. Democratic Representatives Don McEachin of Virginia and Jerry Nadler of New York plan to introduce companion legislation in the House. And Huffington Post actually found a law professor at Loyola University Law School in Los Angeles who said most people say that it seems crazy that it's not illegal to tell someone that they can vote Wednesday when they actually can't. And I agree with that. Jim, if you don't know that Election Day is on a Tuesday in November, early November, that's a problem, and maybe you shouldn't be going.
Well, look, part of the problem, Greg, stems from the fact that all information about voting is classified top secret. The general public is not allowed to know this, and that the only copy of the voting hours and information about voting is kept in Fort Knox, and you need to sneak through all the air vents and hang from cables like Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible series to learn this. No, what are we talking about? This information is all out. Like part of the problem is, to the extent this is a problem, and I don't think this is a problem. In fact, I really want to see somebody say, yeah, I got that email saying that Republicans vote on Tuesday and Democrats vote on Wednesday, and I decided to wait until Wednesday, and then lo and behold, they told me the election was over. I mean, if you do that, you probably spend a lot of time responding to emails from Nigerian princes and all of that. And you really do think all of those attractive women on Facebook really do want to be your friend. First of all, I don't think anyone takes that joke seriously. But even if they did, or all the people who I've heard people put up flyers and stuff like that. Look, do you want to put somebody in jail over it? Do you want to criminalize it? Do you want to send them to 5 years in prison? Do we want to do this at the same time that we have this criminal justice reform effort, which is all about forgiveness and not trying to lock people up and throw away the key as a solution to complicated problems? Greg, in California, thanks to the efforts of Gavin Newsom, they've decided that just about any crime involving something worth less than $950, they want to treat as a misdemeanor for sentencing purposes. Shoplifting, grand theft, bad checks, the whole 9 yards. And different people have a different idea of where you should make that draw that line between, a misdemeanor and a felony. $950 is not chump change. That's not the sort of thing you're going to find in your couch cushions. And the idea of saying, it's just a misdemeanor, no big deal. But now we want 5 years in jail for giving people bad information about voting. There's a little bit, I don't want to say about the buyer beware, but like, as a citizen, we expect a little bit of you, not a lot, but you have to be able to discern between that, email that's been forwarded to you 5 times by Uncle Vinny versus what's on the website for your state elections, organization or something like that. You need to be discerning. Now, here's the thing. If somebody sends out an email and says, your voting place has been changed, first of all, you should check it out. Don't just take anything at face value. But they do sometimes redraw district lines and, change which precinct you vote in or something like that. You might have to do a little bit of homework. You might have to do a little bit of legwork to check out something. This is why, as much as I don't always like the trend of voting early, You sort that out earlier. You don't have to worry about it on election day or something like that. So as much as there are ways to fight this phenomenon, if it's a serious problem, I have my doubts about the scope of the problem. And I don't think the idea of just throwing the law in the books to make it criminal is really going to do very much to resolve the problem. I think this is a way for these Democratic lawmakers to look like, oh, don't you hate people who lie about elections? We should I suppose I should say, Greg, should we be happy that we found some Democrats who actually want to be tough on crime?
Yeah, it's not every day we see that. But is this the latest excuse now for why things didn't go their way in 2016? I mean, we've got Russia, we've got Comey, we've got Macedonian content farms and so forth. But is this the latest one now that people got duped into trying to vote on the wrong day or the wrong place at the wrong time?
Well, I would have won, Greg, but all of my voters are gullible, and they believe that they were supposed to vote on Wednesday, even though the calendar said Election Day is on Tuesday.
Oh, yes. Oh, I forgot about the Electoral College. That was a big part of it. But once again, Democrats, well done. All right, Jim, let's move on to our crazy martini now. And, of course, the 2020 campaign season is not that far away. I believe it'll start at about a half hour after the midterm results are in. And one of the people throwing their hat into the ring, at least threatening to, is Michael Avenatti. At one time, he was the attorney for Stormy Daniels. He now claims he's got 3 other women ready to come forward saying that they were paid hush money by Donald Trump. I don't know if it was directly related to the campaign or some other time, but he's also advancing in this what we would assume is a quixotic pursuit of the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020. He tweeted out yesterday morning, "I look forward to speaking at the Iowa State Democratic Wingding next month. Extremely honored to be included as one of the speakers. It promises to be a great event, as always." And if you're not familiar with Iowa politics and the Wingding event, the Democrats usually show up at this thing if they want to spend a considerable amount of time in Iowa and they want to make a serious play for the victory in the Iowa caucuses. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and as you would say, the whirling dervish of raw political charisma, Martin O'Malley, all participated in this event leading up to the 2016 campaign. And so, Jim, the fact that what seems to be a pretty serious event would include Michael Avenatti on their short list of speakers suggests that the Democrats might not be all that serious going into 2020.
Well, it feels very much like the phenomenon we saw in 2016 with the Republicans and Donald Trump. And there was this argument of like, what, are you kidding me? Donald Trump's never been elected to anything. He's not a senator, not a governor. Never been in the House. He's a Fox News he's just known for getting on cable news and saying things that are provocative and outrageous and fire up the viewers of those channels, but not really the sort of thing that that we expect of in a presidential candidate. And then some people say, you know what? Look, it'll be good for ratings. It'll sell tickets. It'll get people interested in the event. It won't just be the same old boring political wonks. Let's let him up there. What's going to happen? He's going to win. And of course, for Trump, it worked out quite well. This is. I don't think you'd say, Avenatti's the odds-on favorite for that. But I think all of the lessons we had about the blurring of the line between pop culture and politics, and the idea of these, outrageous, larger-than-life personalities. Of course, partisans want red meat. Fine, that's always been a factor in our politics. But there's always been at least a little bit of effort to give them a little bit of vegetables, right? Let them get up there and talk a little bit about policy, talk a little bit about education. Here's how I want to fix, the entitlement programs, healthcare reform, real substance stuff. My suspicion, Avenatti, who spent his whole life basically suing people, I assume he's going to talk about Trump and how terrible Trump is and how, he's going to get him and he's a fighter and, you think we've heard about Trump, there's more to come, you can almost hear the Avenatti speech now because it's basically going to be the sort of thing that he says in his cable news appearances, which, by the way, what's that saying, generating more heat than light or something like that. But if you want to get mad, don't get mad at Michael Avenatti. He's just responding to incentives, right? That there's this endless appetite for red meat. There's this endless appetite of, there are more revelations to come, and Stormy and I know them, and all that kind of stuff. Blame the organizers. They should know better than this. They should know that, bringing in these types of personalities is playing with fire. It is not good for democracy. It is not good for governance. Politics should not always be entertaining. I know people aren't going to like that. I know people, it's not a message people want to hear. But if you don't like the level of governance, you have to treat it like it's a job interview and you have to take it seriously. And you can't just give it to the guy who keeps you most entertained. And that's what Avenatti offers. He's no one really thinks that Michael Avenatti has a brilliant way to reorganize the healthcare system so that people can get the care they want at a price they deem affordable. Nobody believes this guy knows how to get a Middle East peace process or to deal with the changing multipolar world. Nobody believes he knows any of that kind of stuff. But he really hates President Trump. He speaks about him in more contemptuous terms than anybody else. And that's what the Democratic base wants right here. The organizers of events, whether it's this one or various straw polls or candidate forums or anything that's going to take place between now and 2020, look, it's on you to be responsible. You have a certain amount of ability to spotlight certain candidates and kind of not give the spotlight to others. Michael Avenatti is always going to find radio shows and TV shows will be eager to have him on and do his song and dance. This is who's the guy on The Simpsons who convinced him to buy a monorail? That's Michael Avenatti, right? He's this charismatic salesman who can talk you into anything you want. Look, I don't know if Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, or any of these other kind of Democratic rising stars are better options for the Democrats or better options for the country. But I kind of like to know. I kind of like to see what do people have actually governed? What have they done? What can they do? Because if the 2020 Democratic primary just turns into who hates Trump the most, then all of a sudden, the Avenatti Booker ticket or Booker Avenatti ticket doesn't seem so unthinkable, Greg. And I'm not so sure that would be good for the Democrats. I'm not so sure that'd be good for the country.
Yeah, it's not like the wingding people are hurting for speakers. There's only about 50 people thinking about running for the Democratic presidential nomination. My big question, now that Avenatti apparently has 3 others, or at least claims he does, that got hush money, are we going to see a Sharks versus Jets rumble between his people and Gloria Allred over who can produce aggrieved women at the politically opportune time?
I also marvel at this, Greg, in case it needs to be said. If you're married and your wife is at home with your newborn son, 1, don't cheat. 2, don't cheat with porn stars. 3, don't imply you can get the porn star on The Apprentice, the television show you happen to run. Obviously, this will not be a problem for most people. Don't do any of that stuff, and then don't set up elaborate legal arrangements to keep them silent. But having said that, Greg, I don't really find any of these allegations about Trump all that surprising.
No.
And if they were going to be disqualifying, I figure they would have been disqualifying, say, much earlier in the Republican presidential primary of the 2016 cycle, not in the here and now. I don't think there are that many voters who are all that surprised by this and not very many who are scandalous. Melania may be very upset, and there may be some, awkward silences in the White House with these sorts of news. But the idea that Trump would do this doesn't shock me. I don't think it shocks them. And if it comes out that Trump has been doing this for a really long time, I don't think that would be particularly shocking either. So anyway, that's we'll see how this shakes out. But I don't know. I don't see this being I don't think any Democrat should be saying this is how we're going to get Trump. We're going to show that he's a really awful guy and he's involved in financial shenanigans to hide his affairs. Yeah, I think that's kind of priced in with when Donald Trump runs for president. Yeah,
that was kind of baked into his reputation, one that he welcomed until he became a political figure in a lot of different ways. So, Jim, we made it through the week. It's Friday. Have a great weekend. I will actually be out next week, but the 3 Martini Lunch will carry on in excellent hands. Enjoy the week, and I'll see you a week from Monday.
Enjoy a week free from tech hassles, Greg.
You too, hopefully. Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And don't forget to visit our friends over at ZipRecruiter. Right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at the exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/martini. And tune in again Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.